Well, welcome to the December 6th, 2022 council meeting where we are reconvening from closed session where absolutely nothing was accomplished. So, will you stand with me for the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, with liberty and justice for all.
Looking for a motion to adopt the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
I got nothing here.
Let me reset it. Sorry. No?
Always do it orderly.
It's weird. I don't know why it's not working. Okay.
Madam Clerk, will you take the roll, please?
Absolutely. Councilmember Pittman?
Yes.
Councilmember Smith?
Yes.
Councilmember Riggs?
Yes.
Councilmember Hatley?
Yes.
Councilmember Goodson?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Thompson? Mayor Reynolds?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, moving on to presentations and proclamations, we have one presentation from Mission Esperanza, presentation by Susie Cochums.
Right, the committee gets it right. Thank you. Good evening, Mayor and council members and staff. My name is Susie Cockums. I'm the principal CEO of Silk Consulting Group, and I'm here this evening to give you an overview of the encampment resolution funding. You should have copies of the slides, and I'm not going to go verbatim, but I'm going to give you an overview and leave some time at the end for some questions. So I want to go back to background on the encampment resolution funding. October of last year, the state released a funding notice for encampment resolution funding. It was round 2 of the funding. Round 1 was implementing at the same time as round 2 was released, so we don't have best practices yet going into the application process, but we do have those now. The funding for encampment resolution was established to assist our local jurisdictions initiate innovative and replicable efforts to resolve encampment concerns and to support individuals in assessing safe and stable housing. On October 22nd of this year, the city of Oroville was awarded $2.733 million in encampment resolution funding from the California Interagency Council on Homelessness, referred to as CAL-ICH. This project that we are using with the encampment resolution funding is called Mission Esperanza. With that, the funding comes with 2 primary objectives, and that is to achieve safe and sustainable exits from homelessness for those that are unsheltered, that are living on the streets, and particularly in encampment areas that we identified in the application process, and then we're going to coordinate services and improved housing options for that population. As well, the second objective is to facilitate an evaluation of those activities and outcomes for the purpose of sharing scalable and replicable engagement solution models that may be implemented across the state. In the application that we submitted last year, the city coordinated their efforts with the Oroville Rescue Mission and proposed the $2.733 million program over a 3-year period. And that funding includes funds for housing navigation, outreach and engagement, both congregate and non-congregate shelter options, alternative sheltering options, which could be safe parking for RVs and tenting options, as well as transportation and access to permanent housing and a variety of mainstream services such as behavioral health and substance use disorder services. The proposed program will serve approximately 80 individuals over a 3-year period in all of those shelter and housing and service options. The program will build on existing programs at the mission. We're not recreating the wheel here. We are just building capacity to serve and to support timely implementation and collaborative structures for housing and program sustainability. The program will focus on housing first approach and will use trauma-informed practices and a harm reduction model. And I'm going to read this part verbatim because it's really important that we have a good understanding. Housing first approach, simply stated, recognizes that people experiencing homelessness should be connected to housing as quickly as possible through programs that remove barriers to accessing housing, like requirements for sobriety or the absence of criminal history. Trauma-informed practices, our outreach and housing teams will approach clients through a strength-based lens and provide clients with safety, respect, dignity, and choice. And then with the harm reduction model, it's a comprehensive approach to addressing substance use disorders through prevention, treatment, and recovery, where individuals who use substances set their own goals. This model recognizes that drug and alcohol use and addiction may be part of a participant's life, where participants are engaged in non-judgmental communication regarding their drug and alcohol use, and where the participants are offered education regarding how to avoid those risky behaviors and engage in safer practices, including treatment, should they choose. So where we are to date, last year the funding notice was released in October. The city, in coordination with the mission, submitted an application in December of 2021. We were notified in October of this year that we were funded in round what they're calling 2L of the Encampment Resolution Budget Act. And currently, we're here presenting in front of you, and later in the agenda, you have the agreement with the state to consider. And then we're also working on all the implementation activities that we'll be working on starting in December through April of next year. So what's next in our planning process? A lot of little activities and some pretty major procurement and purchasing options. We're executing the agreement with the state hopefully today. There's on the agenda as well an agreement with my firm to help facilitate and manage the process. There is potential for subrecipient agreement with the mission to serve as the service provider in this process. And then the real implementation and pre-development activities will happen after that. We'll have a site plan, multiple procurement documents to go out to hire contractors, consultants, purchase pallet shelters, and other major components of the program, if you will. And then at the very end, really what the encampment resolution funding was made to do is clean up encampments around the city, and we have one in particular identified that we're focusing on, but that doesn't mean we can't take other homeless persons that are not in that encampment and facilitate them through the process as well. How we have budgeted the ERF funding is here, not in dollars, but is in percentage. 47% of the $2.733 million budget is been targeted for shelter expansion. So that is doing some construction at the mission to take a storage facility and turn it into overflow congregate shelter. We have some additional restrooms, some laundry facilities, an intake center, some storage for participants and other things that will make serving those clients much more efficient and effective. Part of that budget also includes funding for the pallet shelters, a lot of build-out, electrical components, pre-development work, site work, drainage study, and things like that are all part of the 47%. 21% of the budget is for outreach, case management, and navigation services. So a lot of staff time in there. 5% is for indirect staff at the city's cost, contract with a consulting firm or project manager, and then 27% is for program operations, so daily supplies, services, transportation costs, things directly related to service provision are the program components. So anticipated project milestones, we are including implementation of all outreach and engagement work. So all the field services work is slated to start September and October of 2023. Between now and that time is when we're doing all of our pre-development, development, and construction work. And this timeline can be a little flexible, but this is what we have articulated to the state as our planned approach for outreach and engagement, as well as implementation activities. So I hope we can stick to it as best we can. By October of 2023, we will start for the facilitation and exit of homeless folks from our encampment to the mission, and we hope to permanently house the first 5 clients in the first month. It all depends on what kind of affordable housing is available at that time, but that's our goal at this point. And then a major milestone for the state is to expend at least 50% of the award, which equates to about $1.36 million in about a year and a half by June 30th of 2024. And given our pre-development, development, and construction costs, we should exceed that 50% mark by that time. And that concludes the overall view. I'm available to answer any questions that you might have. Happy to do so.
Do we have any questions from the public on this item? Having none, do we have any questions from this dais? Oh, I'm sorry, I can't. Oh,
Would the people live in these shelters for a limited amount of time? Or how long will they be allowed to stay in these shelters?
So we're working on the program guidelines, which will basically give us the rules, regulations, policies, and procedures. But typically, in environments like this, they can stay up to 2 years. Typically, our goal is obviously to get them to a point where they can go out and live on their own in an apartment, but that takes a lot of background work and case management to get folks to trust you, to get to a point where they say, okay, I'm ready to eliminate barriers. So
I heard of another similar program, but they were only able to stay for 3 months, and they just get themselves on their feet, and they weren't ready to move out yet, and they were.
Well, and as saying somebody can only stay for 3 months isn't taking it on a case-by-case basis, and everybody's different. Some people can, be ready and eliminate barriers in a month, and some people it takes 2 years.
That's right.
I mean, the folks that we're serving are a lot of chronically homeless, been on the street for a long time with a lot of barriers. You can't solve those barriers and build trust in 3 months.
Okay,
It takes longer.
I like that.
Yeah, you bet.
anyone else? Having no one, Councilmember Smith?
Thank you, Susie, for the presentation.
You bet.
Since you're the expert, as a matter of policy, so I'm looking for this program to provide some, real results for our community as a whole. As we all know, homelessness is certainly, or the unhoused, has a significant impact on quality of life, not just for those of us that have a home to go to in the evening, but also for those on the street. That's a terrible predicament to be in.
Yeah.
And they're probably realistically, the most vulnerable amongst us. And many crimes are committed against the homeless, and frequently that goes without the public's aware. So I think that, as a city, we have a responsibility to protect the most vulnerable amongst us. That being said, I am in full support of this, however, with a caveat that I also want to see this where we can get to a zero tolerance for homelessness in our community. In other words, where we see encampments or people sleeping on our streets, it's a danger to them, and also, it's an impediment to the quality of life for the rest of the community. So that being said, both being concerned for the most vulnerable and also quality of life for the rest of the community. Can this program get us there?
So I'm going to give you 2 sides of a story. Okay, in my professional and personal opinion, we as in the continental United States, will not ever solve homelessness until we fix some of the broken systems that we have.
Yeah, and I understand, I'm not talking about solving it, this is a
Yeah.
management.
Yeah.
But can we get to a place where we can say, in the city of Oroville, we have a zero tolerance homeless policy. We have this is what we have provided for the most vulnerable amongst us, who we are concerned about genuinely.
Absolutely.
And so with that program, the question is, can we, because right now we have this thing called a shelter crisis at the previous council. At the time, it seemed like the thing to do. But it's an impediment to effective, it handcuffs the police officers, no pun intended. And so what I'm looking for is can we get there with a policy or an ordinance to where we say, okay, now that we have, checked these boxes, can we get there?
Yeah, I do believe so. And most of us in the homeless and housing arena call that functional zero. So, if you offer services and you offer services and you offer services and someone doesn't take you up on them, and you've done a good faith effort to get there, then you have to take the next step. So I think what we need to do with this program is build the capacity, which is why we applied for the funding. The mission has always done a really good job, but now we're expanding what they're doing, building on it, and providing more staff to reach more people. And I think one of the things that we maybe haven't done as good a job at is moving folks from the shelter to permanent housing, and removing those barriers so that they don't recidivize, and then provide that long-term case management so that they have someone that they can refer back to if they're having problems or issues or come up against a problem once they're housed. And then they end up recidivizing because they don't have that support. This whole program is to build that capacity where we can place someone and still check in for 3 months, 6 months, a year to two, to make sure that they're remaining stably housed, and then offer supportive services if they're falling short of that. So
I was just going to, I think this council has done a tremendous job, and it's been recognized when it comes to providing low-income housing.
Yeah.
We have hundreds of, units coming available. So I think we've done everything, and then now this next layer where we have, a full program.
Yes.
That's in place. And then, because the folks, they're kind of, they're frustrated with, seeing the unhoused out on the street and the impacts that it has. And so I guess the end game here, at least for me, this council person, that with providing all of these elements, meeting all of the requirements by the state, which is no easy task, right? That then we can then say, okay, we've checked all the boxes, we've hit all the marks, and now in Oroville, that behavior is unacceptable. And that's really kind of what I'm looking for. This is kind of like that final piece.
yes, and I agree with you. It's a perfect storm right now with all of the housing, affordable housing coming online, not just in Oroville, but in Butte County. We have moved in that direction to provide at least one of those barriers that we've had in meeting the needs of the homeless in the county as a whole. Those are coming online. So, the mission staff is already partnering with all of those developers to make sure that we have basically a line to them to move the clients from the mission to those affordable housing units when they become available and when the client is ready to move.
So, and just one final comment, and then I will be quiet. And that is sitting on a COC in that industry, and it is an industry. The constant discussion is that there's no housing. That's why we have homelessness from their perspective. Now, I don't think the general public totally buys into that. There's a lot of reasons why people are homeless, and obviously mental health, drug addiction. We know the deal. Anybody can sit up here and say what I'm saying. So again, just going back to we've hit that mark, because that's frequently what those in the industry say. If we only had. And I think we're rapidly going to. In fact, I predict, and I'll probably be held to this, that we're going to have empty low-income units sitting and not taken advantage of. We have so many coming on. I could be wrong. I hope I'm wrong, but I think we've hit all those marks, and there will be opportunity for those that are in that predicament. It'll be there available for them, and then they have to make that choice. But if they fail or they refuse to make that choice, then I think there's a point or our tolerance of that then comes to an end.
Yes, I would agree with that. And I think that the case managers at the mission will do their very best to keep those units full with the numbers that we have planned to serve, so.
It'll be something to watch.
Definitely.
Councilmember Pittman.
Yeah, thank you, Susie. Two quick questions. One is procedural, though the funding that comes in, is it a reimbursement that the city expenses, or does it come direct to the city and then dispersed?
It's a lump sum provided to the city upfront.
Okay, thank you. I just was curious about that from
Yeah.
a fiscal. The second question, which you've kind of already answered, is as the rescue mission, and I want to compliment the rescue mission, the staff, going back to Steve, Terry, and Annie, and yourself, and everybody sitting at the table trying to come up with this idea. It's nice to see that we have a little bit of success here, and I compliment all the personnel that were involved in this. I guess the other part of my question is, you've already answered, essentially, this isn't just going to be the rescue mission's clientele. The clientele may come from other nonprofits in the area, but it's a beauty because the rescue mission owns this property already. And that was a key thing, because when you try to buy property in the grant, it's really difficult and your grant points go down. So I want to give compliment to the rescue mission to have the forethought to have that property available. And now they'll be able to, make the best of that, both worlds. But I'm assuming that when we have other nonprofits in town that have clients, they'll probably be able to be access to this facility.
Yes. So, with the encampment resolution funding, it's 3 years of funding, and it's best to, in any grant opportunity, not just this one, is to build your program and then look for funding to support it, not the other way around. You don't find the funding and then build a program to meet it. So the mission has been established for over 50 years. They've done wonderful things.
Right.
We're just using this to expand on it. And with the 3-year funding cycle, if you will, if we had to start from scratch and find a piece of property and negotiate it, and then,
Exactly.
that 3 years would have been gone and we would have had nothing accomplished. So this was a win for the city, a win for the mission, and a win for all providers and residents in the entire city. So, one of the components is outreach. There's a lot of money put into outreach. So those outreach coordinators or navigators will not only work with the homeless that are on the streets, whether they're at the encampment or anywhere in the city, but they'll also be coordinating efforts with other providers. And it takes a system to make this successful. And the mission staff are already well engaged in that effort across all service providers. I myself worked with Dawn Taylor from Behavioral Health. Today, they're on board.
Right.
When the news hit the paper yesterday, that the council agenda was basically in the enterprise record, my phone was ringing off the hook, texts coming in from people that I've worked with across the COC about, thank you. I'm glad this is coming to fruition. We're here to support you. I didn't get one negative comment. It was all very positive and in support. Tell me when you're going to go do some additional fundraising. Tell me when you're going to start your donations.
Good.
It's a perfect storm. I think it's a blessing to have this opportunity.
Appreciate the discussion. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to bring a conversation that I had with Steve Terry about 4 years ago, where when I first came into this office, I asked him, how come you're not involved with the city's grants and things? And he said, we're not in the city. So thank you to those on this dais and in this group that had the foresight to annex them into the city, to bring them into qualifications for these things, because it's turning out to be a really good program. So thank you. I think that's it. Thank you, Susie.
Okay, my pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, public communication. Madam Clerk, do you have access to the time clock, or do we need? Yes. Okay. All right, this is the time for the public to communicate on non-agenda items. Do you have anyone who's turned in a blue card?
Mr. Mayor, I do have 2 speakers, the cameraman and Mr. Bill Spear.
Good evening, Oroville City Council. I hope everybody had a good Thanksgiving. It's been a while since we've had a meeting, and I didn't get a good squirt there. There we go. Got to keep the hands clean. You know, flu season's around pretty bad right now from what I hear. And speaking of council meetings, I guess this is going to be the last council meeting for before the getting tongue-tied, the last council meeting of the year, not before the year, of the year. So I guess I won't be seeing everybody on the new board come next year, but I hope everybody has a Merry Christmas, and it was good 4 years. Now some new people get to come in for a change. Let's clean that off there. All right, now on to some business. Just curious, not super major, but do we have to have a job site sign posted out here? I just like, what's going on out here? It's like I see kind of in progress, so I don't know if that's a requirement, but there's plastic, plywood. It looks like a job site to me, but I could be wrong on the definition because it may not be quite there to meet that requirement. But I still have not received public records requests in regards to my request for video. I guess we're still waiting a response back from the editing company on some videos, so I still haven't received those. So I'm wondering, will I be receiving those before the new year or after the new year? I guess only time will tell, but I would preferably like to receive those before the new year. I mean, it's been like almost a year. I know it's too long for me to count anymore. It's well past due. But then again, you know, it's like COVID, combination of other things, and now this editing company taking their time. It's from someone who's dealt with a system before in other places where responses are predominantly quick within that 10-day time frame as to whether or not that you're actually going to get the video. This is a town, I must say, you guys have actually been willing to give over body cam video and other videos, unlike some other cities. But now we've gotten to a point where we've actually, in the stages of releasing it, but it seems to be a roadblock. We come closer to the finish line, but we keep getting a flat tire and having to get out and change it. So if we get that squashed away before the new year, that would be great. Thank you for your time.
Bill Spear?
Mr. Mayor, Vice Mayor. Just come here to pray for you all, and I'm really excited about the rescue mission and what a great job they've done all these years with hardly nothing, and it's good to see movement, and excited for our city and for the homeless. So, Father, we thank you for all that you're doing. Lord, in your word it says, what we've done to the least of these, we've done unto you. And thank you for Pastor Allen and him taking up the reins and leading. We pray for wisdom, that we would have that heavenly wisdom to be good stewards of what you give us. We pray for all those out there on the streets in the cold, and Lord, as I drive by, my heart hurts for them, trying to imagine what they're going through, and I just want to thank you for bringing provision to have assets to help, and for those that want a way out, that you're making a way. You said you are the way and the truth and the life. Thank you for the Hope Center and all that you've done with them. They do bring hope as they give a meal and some clothes and the little things that we take for granted. And as we go into this Christmas season, I pray for our city, for our community, that you would continue to break our hearts for what breaks yours. That we would look and see opportunities to show goodwill and to be your hands and feet, to be the vessels that you use to make a difference. And you are making a difference. Things are changing in our city, and I continue to lift up our
code enforcement and our police department, and thank you for all that they do, the behavioral health and all of the case managers. And as we continue to work together as a unit, I thank you for the testimony of the presentation, that there is a plan and that there is a solution, and that as we look to you and we call on you, that you would open up the floodgates of heaven upon our city. The blessings of God would flow. We thank you. We praise you. We give you all the glory. In Jesus' name, amen.
Okay, looking for a motion to adopt the consent calendar.
So moved?
A second. Probably gonna need to call roll. Councilmember Pittman,
Yes.
Councilmember Smith,
Yes?
Councilmember Riggs,
Yes.
Councilmember Hatley, Councilmember Goodson,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Thompson.
Yes.
And Mayor Reynolds.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Moving on to regular business, item number 16, consider and adopt the side letter agreement between the City of Oroville and the Oroville Police Officers Association sworn and non-sworn units.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and Council. What you have before you tonight is for your consideration is an adoption of a new salary structure for the police officers and the individuals that work within the OPOA sworn and non-sworn units. What has precipitated this is the changing field that we have for law enforcement right now, where it's becoming very difficult to keep and retain employees and extremely difficult to attract new employees. One of the impediments to that here in the city of Oroville was that we were paying a salary that was less than what our surrounding neighbors were paying. Our officers were looking, and they were enticed away with a better salary than what we currently have here. I mean, so as we looked into ourselves, we decided that, in order to keep the individuals that we currently have here and to potentially attract new ones, we had to address that salary structure. So what we did is we looked at our salary structure, and we came up with a new one based upon longevity and how long of service you've been working for, in law enforcement or for the city. And we took the 3 highest steps in each one, and we equated that to your first 18 months, you'll make the lowest pay. The next 18 months, a middle pay, and then the last after that, you'll make the top step. This will be reassessed and evaluated come this next fiscal year, or next calendar year, I'm sorry, because we are going to have to negotiate with all of our labor groups. And we are in the process right now of having a salary class and comp study done, so that will tell us, where do we lie within our surrounding neighbors. We took the opportunity while we were looking at this and negotiating these potential changes in salaries for our personnel to also get some things that the city needed. A couple of those things, one of them was what would be considered SB2, Senate Bill 2 language. If you're not familiar with Senate Bill 2, that is the serious misconduct and decertification process that's being put in place by the state. What that means is that when an officer is alleged to have been involved in serious misconduct, they could be decertified, which means they lose their police officer standard and training certificate, which means they're no longer eligible to be a police officer in the state of California. With that and this new process coming in, we thought it would be a good time for us to negotiate getting Senate Bill 2 language rolled into our MOU, because the last thing you want to do is go through a process where you have somebody who's going through a decertification process with the state, and the state take 5 years to do that, and in the meantime we have an officer or a person sitting at home on administrative leave that we're paying the entire time until we get through that process. So what we negotiated was that you will go, if you are in that process, you are out on unpaid leave until such time as the decertification process is completed. At that point, if you are decertified, you are done working for us, and we are no longer on the hook to you, and we have no obligation to pay you any sort of back pay or anything like that. So we were able to negotiate that into our MOUs. That's a very significant thing for the city because we have no idea how long the state's going to take to, once you upload somebody into the post system for decertification. I mean, it could be days, it could be weeks, who knows? I mean, and we don't want to find out. That's the last thing that we want to have the council find out. The other thing that we were able to negotiate in there was new shift differential language. It cleaned up how we do our shift differentials. And with the new software that we have, the archaic language that we were using that was hard and fast just didn't meet the needs of our organization or our associations. The new one is based now specifically on times that you work. And with the, for lack of a better term, the AI that's used in the timekeeping software, it will track exactly if you are working a graveyard shift or if you're working a swing shift. But this was an item that had to be negotiated. We were able to negotiate that, and we got favorable terms for the city on that. So what I'm recommending that we do at this point is we adopt the 2 side letters of agreement with our OPOA sworn and non-sworn. It will do the pay adjustment. It will also give us the SB2 language that we need into our MOUs, and it will adjust our shift differential pay. Coincidentally, there is no increase in the pay. It's just how the hours in which we pay it and how we account for that and time that. That's the only change in that. It is not an increase in pay.
Do we have any questions from the public on this item?
Mr. Mayor, I do not have any speaker cards for this item.
Do we have any questions from this dais? Councilmember Hatley.
Thank you. On the shift differential pay, now, how often do you switch shifts?
Every 3 months.
Every 3 months?
Yes.
So, and then what happens if you have an officer on day shift that's on a day off and they have to pick up an overtime shift on nights? Is that, then does the shift differential pay?
Yes, they would get
Part of
shift.
that?
Yes, they would
So
get
that-
shift differential pay.
Okay, so then, is that gonna make a nightmare for finance?
No, because the software does all that. The accounting software, your timekeeping, that when you clock in and you clock out, it identifies all those things. And it is sent to the, it's uploaded, and it's the artificial intelligence of this thing is tremendous, and it takes a lot of that question work or difficult, tedious work out of the process because the system recognizes what you're doing.
Okay, so there's not gonna be any manual the system itself will pick it up and do it?
Right. The only manual input comes from the officer or the employee themselves. They clock in and they clock out, and then it recognizes the hours that you're working and what those differentials are.
Okay. And just for clarity, I know the answer, but
Sure.
for clarity for everybody, the salaries that we're talking about here and the hourly rates, that's strictly just pay, that doesn't include benefits and all that's on top of that, correct?
There is no increase in benefits, but the fiscal impact that's included with this does include the benefit included into our overall cost.
Right, okay. All right, thank you.
Anyone else? Having no one else, I'm looking for a motion to adopt the side letter agreement between the City of Oroville and the Oroville Police Officers Association,
So moved.
sworn unit and non-sworn unit.
I second that.
Councilmember Pittman?
Yes.
Councilmember Smith?
Yes?
Councilmember Riggs?
Yes?
Councilmember Hatley? Councilmember Goodson?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Thompson? Mayor Reynolds?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Moving on to item number 17, municipal law enforcement expansion.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Council. What you have before you is the request of Councilman Hatley, and I believe seconded by Councilman Pittman, regarding the potential expansion of the municipal law enforcement services program in response to the request for private security in the downtown core and parks and different areas like that. During the election process, one of the issues that was brought forward by one of the candidates was the feeling of safety that they weren't currently experiencing in the downtown area. And one of the suggestions that she had was to hire private security. I think that's a good conversation is a good place to start. You know, I just don't think that that would probably be the best solution for our city, but I do appreciate the fact that we have the conversation and we're starting to look at different solutions of how we would fulfill those needs and those issues. So after looking at this and just doing some quick analysis of it and to return this to the council, what I'm suggesting that we do in response to that is to expand our municipal law enforcement program. What we do with our municipal law enforcement program is we bring in young people from our community and we introduce them into law enforcement. Municipal law enforcement officers are used to handle all sorts of low-level calls, mostly misdemeanor crimes, property crimes, crimes where there is no suspect or there is not a crime of violence. They do transports, they take traffic accident reports, they do proactive patrols in the area for quality of life issues. They assist with the unhoused camp cleanups. They are just kind of an all-around person that we use in the police department to augment our police force. It also lessens the workload on the police officers so they can concentrate on higher level things and more crimes of violence and intense crimes that need more investigative resources and time spent on. We would like to look at potentially expanding that. The idea would be to expand the program by 8 additional officers, and then we would deploy them through the city at various times during the day. And what they would do is I would envision them not only patrolling our downtown area, but also our South Oroville area, our West Side area, wherever that necessary patrol may be. And I don't mean just the regular ones where the car shoots by at 20 miles an hour. What I'm envisioning seeing is people on foot. I'm seeing people walk neighborhoods. Have them, know those neighborhoods, walk our downtown, also patrol our parks to get onto the trail all the way up to as far as our jurisdictional boundaries will go and that we can stretch it to, and all the way down on the south side or south end of town as far as we can go into Riverbend Park and things like that. Get them actually integrated into the community. Let them learn that, fulfill the needs, or at least give that feeling to our community that they're looking for of safety by seeing more people out there. Right now, it's extremely difficult to hire a police officer. We're just not getting applications. We have one coming out of the academy. We have 3 MLEs that are going into the academy, and we'll be getting 3 out next spring. But right now, we're just not getting any applicants. All of the applicants that are in the academy are all already tied to different departments, and we just are not getting those applications. So it's very difficult. The MLE program not only provides the feeling of safety in the community, puts more boots on the ground out there, but it also gives us an opportunity to evaluate the individuals and determine who is going to go to the academy if we're going to send somebody. It's essentially a program where you get to try before you buy. And if the person is interested in this work and the work is, suited to them and they're suited to the work and they want to take that next step, and we've had an opportunity to see their work ethic and what their interest is and their ability, then we'll send them to the academy. And we'll be able to harvest from that program. We'll keep continually getting ourselves a few officers each go around out of the academy. An additional thing that I really like about the program is that we get to hire our kids. I mean, we have good jobs. The city has good jobs, and we get to hire local kids into that program and take them to that next step in their chosen field. If the council authorizes this, we'll begin the process immediately of looking for and identifying 8 new personnel. We also have to backfill the ones that we've already are sending or committed to sending to the academy come next month, or I'm sorry, January. Yeah, that is next month, in January. So we'll have to backfill all of those at the same time. This will be a big push for the department to get a lot of people on. We'll be able to utilize most of the equipment that we already have within the program. We'll begin training the people. The one thing that we did mention in here that we would like to have is some sort of vehicle to actually patrol the parks. We don't have anything really that we can. You can drive a Crown Vic or an Explorer down the trail, but it's really probably not the best of ideas. There are some tight places, but we need something where we can get off of the road into the parks. I envision us going all the way up past the tunnel and all the way down all the way down to Matthews Ready Mix. I mean, to address those individuals that exist out there, or the issues that exist out there. I'm sorry, I'm distracted by something. I don't know what that noise is, but it's distracting. It's what? Is it? Huh. Okay, well, it stopped now. So it was a very distracting noise. So anyway, I'm envisioning something like that. I'm envisioning doing that to help fulfill that request of our community. Because like I say, it was a great opportunity to have a conversation. It was a good conversation starter. I think all things like that are always worthy of talking about. I mean, and exploring the possibilities. The issues that come with private security is these are not our employees. We're hiring somebody on the outside that we have to take all the responsibility for, because regardless of what happens, we have the deepest pockets. And I understand that we're going to hear, well, you know, they have $1 million insurance policy. Fantastic. We have a $40 million insurance policy. Who do you think they're coming after? They're acting as our agents. And if you have no control over what the individuals are doing, what their training is, what their background is, what their psychological suitability is to be doing what they're doing, you run into all sorts of problems. I mean, it makes more sense for the city to control the issue as best they can. I mean, because I'm not going to stand here and tell you, hey, you know, if we hire them with the police department, we'll never have any litigation. Well, everybody knows that's not true. I mean, so, you know, but we have a better opportunity of managing that as long as we're doing that, as opposed to going to the outside. And this is no knock on private security. They do a fine job for what they do. When they have a defined area that they are there to secure and to make contact with individuals, that's great. I mean, but when you are suggesting to release them into the community, that's really not what they're trained to do, not what their experience or their background is. And you run into issues, all sorts of things. You run into illegal detentions, and then if it does escalate, they're going to call the police anyway. So you're kind of right back to the same thing where you started. I mean, so it becomes, you know, kind of a difficult issue. So I do appreciate what private security does. I respect what they do. You know, I just think that in this particular situation, what we're being asked for, I think we could more, well, heck, I'm sounding like my grandkids, more better do this and provide this service than what the suggestion was. But like I say, I do want to congratulate the person and say thank you. It was a good opportunity to have the conversation and to explore all this. So I'm willing to answer any questions that you may have or may not have. And
Do we have any questions from the public on this item?
Mr. Mayor, I do not have any speaker cards on this item.
Councilmember Goodson?
Yeah, so thank you, Bill. I appreciate giving us two sides of this thing. I know that the original idea was the security. So with all due respect, and correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Belser, were you the originator of the MLE program? You designed it.
All the training they do, report writing, CSI work, how to operate a vehicle safely in public, how to maneuver around at nighttime, and how to stay out of trouble.
So was a part of a component of the initial program, did you write in boots on the ground? I'm just looking at what that component looks like. Was that a futuristic? And did you and Bill come together on the ideas in regards to the presentation this evening?
So when the municipal law enforcement program was designed, individuals did beats on boots on the ground, downtown, different areas of the city. That was the initial part of the program where the demand, we didn't know the demand at the time or what the demand would be. And whenever you start a new program, you know, there are hurdles that come along. And what we learned through the design of the program was how much need there was on the policing side to be able to provide services to people. If that program didn't happen, you would not be able to report your car stolen. You would not be able to report a burglary, a petty theft, an identity theft without coming to the station, doing an over-counter report. There would not be officers able to have the time or the bandwidth to deal with those issues, the paper calls, like we talk about, the cold crimes, the misdemeanors. What that group did was help the police department provide those services. Additionally, boots on the ground. These guys, when you train them, and we are careful again about who we screen or how we screen them, how we hire them, we just don't hire anybody. When you hire those individuals, the work that they do, the workload that they take on, and teaching them to be out and how to relate with the public, how to relate with business owners, how to address the unhoused issue, the amount of training they get, it's invaluable. I mean, if that program, and I'm not going to knock people or say any names, but there was a particular chief that was here for a short period of time. If that program would have continued the direction it was going, you would not have a staffing issue with the police department right now. So it's an amazing program. I believe it needs to be expanded. Mm-hmm. Their presence, their knowledge, what they're trained, what they're taught, and they're taught to be smart. They know a situation that they should go contact. They know a situation where I need to get on the radio and contact the police. They know situations where I don't need to be here. I can come back with the police and deal with the situation. Bad guys hate attention. They hate people that can see them. They don't like light. They don't like cameras. Those are all things that our city needs. And the MLEs provide the eyes and ears for the police when they can't be there.
Thank you, I appreciate that. So I guess what I need convincing on is the boots on the ground in some areas in our city. And especially knowing that these are they're officers in a sense, but they do not carry any weaponry to protect themselves.
They are non-sworn officers. The items that they do carry, the citizen tasers, pepper spray, those are all defensive, not offensive tools. So there's our tools to keep them safe, and not get injured. If they're put into a situation where they need to gain distance from somebody, they're going to pepper spray them. They're gonna release their citizen taser, and they're gonna launch it, and it's gonna land, and they're gonna have 30 seconds to get out of the area. They're just items to keep them safe.
So would they be, do you have them paired off?
We have policies and procedures that in place that there are areas that they go into that they're not alone. They're
Thank
never
you.
alone at nighttime. Mm-hmm. And there are certain calls after dark that they will not go handle without police being present.
Thank you, appreciate that.
Councilmember Pittman.
Yeah, thanks. I appreciate what a couple of answers came from that discussion. The additional officers of 8, will that be providing round-the-clock or 16-hour coverage? What kind of coverage is your staffing plan?
The staffing plan would be a 16-hour day. We would run from 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. I mean, is what we would like to do and break them up. After dark, whether that's the summer or the winter, we would double them with a police officer at the time. They would still be utilized in the purpose of taking cold case paper, but they will also be utilized for transporting prisoners when necessary. That way we're not tying up our police officers with transports. But we would like to do a 16-hour day like that, Councilman.
And if I could add something, the time period he's talking about, 6 a.m. to 10 p.m., that is the need. I mean, that is the need in our city. After 10 p.m., it's more of a police need, more of a sworn need.
Sure.
But up until that 10 o'clock hour, it's a need for the MLEs.
Well, and I agree with that concept. I am going to support this. I think it's a great idea. It's a first step in a big beginning. But I also will caution that I may even see the need for private security down the line in addition to if this doesn't work, because the security issues in this community are outrageous right now. And one of the primary things that I'll mention is business owners. There's nothing worse than a business owner come to open their door the first day and there's someone at the front door and they have to remove them from the front door and or their items from the front door. And then there's a confrontation with them and that individual come back and break out the windows.
Yes, sir.
So at the minimum, the MLEs will be the one responsible to ask that person to move instead of the business owner. And that's the scenario that I'm looking to see, change, because the business folks are losing their margins and profit, which they don't have a big margin anyway, and spending expensive time on window replacement. I know one bicycle business lost 3 windows. That's $500 a piece. That's just not acceptable. So I support this idea. I think, I wonder if 8's going to be enough.
I think if we start there, Councilman Pittman, and we see where we go from there, what we're going to run into eventually is we're going to be transitioning folks back to police officers. So they will eventually become police officers. So I didn't want to get too far out there, because I know and recognize that when we approach that point at some point, we're either going to have to, through attrition or people leaving the job normally, or through layoff, have to downsize the program, because we just economically cannot afford it. So I just didn't want to go too far, too fast. We may return at a later time and ask for more if it's, really working well, it's doing the things that we want it to. I agree with you about private security in defined areas. There may be a need, or that could be a component of this as well.
Right.
This is where we would like to start. And as far as the individuals in front of businesses and things like that, one of the first tasks every day is going to be in those business areas and to get folks that are there that shouldn't be there, that are showing up overnight, get them moving along.
Right. The other thing I will say, that the experience up in Reading is they put folks on the river trail, and the amount of individuals that had existing warrants and arrests out there was substantial. So I certainly support the idea of having additional vehicles to cover our trails, whether it's a Polaris. I assume it's a side-by-side.
Yeah, this is a Polaris. It's fully enclosed. It's marked. It is the police version of a Polaris.
Right. I think that's a great idea, and I certainly support that idea too. Maybe more if we get along. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Councilmember Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I fully support this presentation, and I would like to add to the conversation. Everyone's well aware of the fact that the law enforcement industry has suffered tremendously in its, status in our community. Thinking about windows, oftentimes our mind immediately goes to the homeless. Not always. Sometimes it's our youth. In fact, that was a pretty common practice back in my day. I would assume there are still some that participate in that. I'm talking about teens. And thinking of teens and law enforcement, you've had a great career as the chief and coming up through the process of involvement in law enforcement. And I think about our town and all the anchored law enforcement agencies that are here. So we have CHP, of course the sheriff is anchored here. We have correctional officers, probational officers, park rangers, game wardens, all respectable careers in law enforcement. And so that being said, to reinvigorate the notoriety and respectability of law enforcement, and it's a value, it's an Oroville value, maybe not in Sacramento or other parts of our country so much, but I think we value that. And so what I'm proposing here is an addition to add on to this motion, the idea of reinvigorating that value through an ROP program in our high schools, potentially using Measure U money, so it's still public safety, and so engaging our kids. I reached out to LP principal Dr. Collins, just ran it by him just on a whim. And, he was just jumping up and down, thinking that's awesome. Now, of course, there's a lot of detail in here as far as the funding. How much? Is it 50? Is it 250? I don't know. But thinking about my past and other places where I've lived over the years, our high schools had ROP programs, in particular law enforcement ROP programs. I have a personal friend who's a cop in Chico who came out of an ROP program in the Bay Area. And so I think it could be a great feeder right into the MLE. In other words, it's another kind of lower level yet still to feed into this program. And not just OPD, but also all the other jurisdictions mentioned. It's a wonderful career with great benefits. And I think that we need, as a community, to elevate that and place a value on that. And when we do monetary investment that's saying that we value that. So I think it behooves the city to take and we're not talking probably about a lot of money. Again, I don't know what that looks like, but, so I'm prepared to make a motion on this and with an addendum for the city staff to authorize the city staff to collaborate with the high school to explore a law enforcement ROP program as a potential front-end feeder for our MLE program.
You're prepared to make a motion. Is that a motion?
Yeah, that's a motion.
I've been trying to talk, but my
Oh,
buttons
I'm sorry.
don't work.
Councilmember Riggs.
Thank you. Sorry. I had a few things. Who is how is the administrative structure of the MLE program? As in, who oversees it? I know that we have a lot of responsibility on you overseeing the police department, but who oversees the MLEs? And is there a need for additional oversight or supervision for that group?
There will eventually be a need for additional oversight, which we will return with at that time. Right now, it's supervised by the day-to-day patrol sergeant that's there supervising those officers. The lieutenant then supervises the sergeants, and of course, ultimately, I supervise everyone.
I just first saw the need, if we're hiring at this level, that would be a lot of staff time and training on the front end that might require additional administrative people for. Then the second thing was, didn't we have a funny little electric car?
We did.
Did that get decommissioned?
It did get decommissioned. The batteries on them, we replaced the batteries one time. They were $3,700 each, I believe, for each car. We did that. They lasted less than, I think it was a year, 2 years, something like that. They went dead again, and it was, we made the decision at that time not to make another $37,000 or $4,000 investment in each one of them. They were just, wearing out too fast.
Okay. I would say that if we needed 2 of those, then we'd likely need 2 of these Polarises.
We very well could, that's, I would like to, I'd rather go slow and easy.
Okay.
I mean, if we need one, we'll return back and we'll ask for the second one.
Okay, don't be afraid to do that. And then I also wanted to clarify, you said at several points that we'd be hiring our kids. We will not be hiring kids, but it will be an entry-level position that young adults
Right.
or older adults who are looking at a new job in law enforcement could apply to, not children.
Well, my kids are older than the people
Than
we'll
me,
be hiring.
probably.
So I don't mean that disrespectfully or any way. It's just,
wanted to clarify.
they're young people. I mean, from our community.
Yeah, and then I also wanted to just applaud you, Mr. Legrone and Mr. Belser, for creating this program. I know that that's been something that is a pride point for our community and for me in particular, and so I just appreciate the forethought, and I'm excited to see it grow.
Thank you.
And when you motion, I'm ready to second.
Thank you.
I'd just like to add to that program's going on year 10. So it's been around for a while. So it's a good program.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second.
I'm just waiting.
Councilmember Pittman?
Yes.
Councilmember Smith?
Yes?
Councilmember Riggs?
Yes?
Councilmember Hatley? Councilmember Goodson?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Thompson? Mayor Reynolds?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Mr. Mayor and Council, I will return to the council with what the ROP component of this looks like with any additional cost and how do we move forward on that. Thank you.
Okay, moving on to reports, discussions, and correspondence. Are there any reports or announcements from this council? Councilmember Riggs.
Thank you. It's very frustrating not being able to do our normal system. From the Downtown Business Association, I just wanted to extend a thank you to the city, to Sierra Pacific, to Sean Weber and Billy Spear, and all of the individuals that helped pull off the Christmas tree lighting and the decorations downtown. Christmas is a very special time to our community, in particular to downtown Oroville. So on behalf of them, I'd like to extend a thank you to all who helped in that. And a gentle reminder, and a firm reminder, actually, to shop local. That's from me, not from them.
Councilmember Pittman.
Yeah, thank you. I got a chance to attend the Lumen New Year celebration that was held at the Oroville Convention Center on Saturday night. A couple things I'll mention, they did have about 700 folks came from far and a wide area, from as far as Seattle to Los Angeles to attend this celebration. The Min community here is, first time they've had it back in the convention center again, and it was nice to see the convention center all repaired and looking good and having tables and chairs and food, and their celebration was great. I will say it was very nice to see the facility being used that way, and they were very happy to be there and look forward to them returning in the future. So it was a big positive event. And the food was wonderful, to tell you the truth. The only thing we're going to have to work on is restrooms. And I don't know what the issue is with the auditorium, but maybe you can tell us a story there.
Yes, the plans are still in engineering. I'm meeting with the engineering team, the construction management team, and the mechanical, electrical, and plumbing team this next week so that we can finalize those plans and get them out for RFP. And hopefully construction will commence this spring and that facility will finally be done.
Good. I noticed that they used portable restrooms, and I think that's probably a good idea just for the future anyway, for overload. It was tough because they were outside and it was raining pretty hard, and it was difficult for many in the place. So it'd be nice to see that come helpful.
The new restrooms in the facility will have 6 men's and 6 women's stalls, so it'll accommodate many more folks.
Interesting part of the celebration, they actually had a golf tournament on that rainy day, and 80 of them showed up and golfed. And they got trophies and awards and everything. I go, holy man, I mean, that's crazy. But they enjoyed it. They had a great time. So.
Councilmember Pittman.
Yes.
Also, on that project, we plan on applying for CDBG program income to do the repairs, and we're in the process, the NEPA process right now on that as well.
Good.
It should
Good.
be
That's
closing
good
up
to hear.
here in the next week or two.
Yeah, they were very excited about using the facility, and it was very nice to see them all. And we had many, many people, especially from Sacramento, that were impressed with the facility, so it was a good thing.
Councilmember Smith.
Yeah, I just wanted to just echo what Councilwoman Riggs expressed about the Downtown Business Association doing a great job, because the reflection of that is how many people showed up. So go Oroville. There were hundreds and hundreds of people, and also the YMCA. Sarah continues to do a great job. They had the cornhole going on Friday night, and I walked in there, and that building was jammed with people just having a great time. So it's just really good to see that asset being utilized in the way that, and it's continuing to grow and get more and more busy, which, and when we first started spending a lot of money on that, I thought, oh man, that's all, on that old building, but I think it's turning out to be a wise investment because the community's making great use of it. So, but I just wanted to express, good job, Downtown Business Association.
Yeah, I'll comment on the tree lighting ceremony. Oh,
Chrissy, thank you. Yeah, and so the parade got caught up in the moment with the building, but yeah. So this Saturday, 6 o'clock, we're having the light parade, and we have a ton of floats. It's going to be a great parade. Pray for no rain. That being said, I just want to ask the public. Public safety is always paramount in all of these things, and so I just ask the public, please stay off the street. And respect those that are monitoring all the street closures. We want everyone to have a great time and everyone go home with just nothing but smiles and fun, and we don't want any incidences. So we just ask the public to help with that. We're a little challenged with our volunteers because what I found, if you're not in the parade, you're sick. So it's just been a really big challenge, and most of the folks I know, they're in the parade, which is great. So I'm asking the public just to kind of be mindful of that. And moms and dads, do your best, monitoring your kiddos. Thank you.
So I had the honor of lighting the Christmas tree again this year with my wife and Santa, and riding in the one-horse open sleigh. That was a lot of fun. Great time, but I'll tell you what, the whole evening was wonderful, but what really, I'll say it warmed my heart, was walking around downtown with everyone at nighttime and seeing our police officers walking around downtown as well. And there was a speeding car over here on Huntoon that was, I believe, trying to show off in front of the crowd. The police officer was on him immediately, so I was really happy to see their presence and you know, just the feeling of family and community. It's wonderful. Then today, something that Bill Agrone, and staff has been working on for 4 years, we finally got the Hmong, Mian, and Laos communities a building to gather in. They've been, 4 years ago when I met them, when I was campaigning, I was invited to their celebration, and I asked them why they were meeting on a ball field. And they said that they didn't have anywhere else to meet. And I said, well, how come you don't have a building? Everybody's got a building. And they said, no, we've been promised since we've been here, since the 70s or 80s, I believe, but nobody's ever came through. And what it looked like to me, and it sounded like a lot of campaign promises and no one following through. So I never said a word. I just came to Bill Agrone and asked him, hey, what can we do for these people? And they were so patient, so they remind me, because I've been to their homes and had dinner with them, and I tell them that they remind me of America in the 1950s, where family was valued, education, manners, all of these things. And it's just so heartwarming. And today we got to present their building to them, the Girdler building, and they were so happy walking around talking about putting up their artifacts and their pictures and all of these things that are in storage in people's homes, and that they need to regather together and get in one place so they can honor their culture and their heritage. So congratulations to them, and it was a really fun, heartwarming thing to be involved in. Finally, I'm proud of that, and I'm sorry if I sound proud, but I am. And so anyway, that's all I have. That's all I can remember for this period. Is there anyone else? Having no one, future agenda items? Having none, administration reports. Ms. Bergstrom. Chief Legrone.
Well, Mr. Mayor, I just want to report back to the council that I attended a neighborhood watch meeting last night at the Senior Citizen Center here in town. It was attended by approximately 35 to 40 people. It was probably one of the most positive meetings that I've been to as we discussed our community and, where we go from here and how we make the changes in our community to improve the quality of life for everyone in it. So it was just very positive. The police department, myself and Ron were both there, but we are back in the business of attending those meetings and participating in those groups and reconnecting with our community. I mean, that stopped for a while, but we're back in that business now, and we just had a really good experience last night. I just want to say thank you to those that put that on.
Mr. Huber?
Nothing, sir, other than just a reminder, we do need to go back into closed session following.
Yes, sir, I got it.
Yep.
Thank you.
That's it.
Sorry, I didn't mean to be a bully.
Nope, that's it.
Ms. Nevers?
Yes, our permitting software is well underway. Our staff is working very hard. It's a very time-taking process, very involved for the staff. They have to go through each permit that we have and itemize every step along the way. And then once they get, they're called questionnaires. Once they get the questionnaires developed, then they put those questionnaires into the system and they start building the system. So it's all built by our staff. So our staff is going to know that system inside and out. But again, it's a time-taking process, and it won't be deployed until end of summer, beginning of fall this next year. But it is underway, and it's going to be great for the community to have this available to them so that they can apply for permits online, apply for their business licenses online. So it'll be a great program for our community and staff.
You know, that reminds me, it was years ago, 15, 18 years ago, I asked for a subdivision map of a neighborhood. And the person that worked here said, well, I can go down in the basement and look around. It might take 10 or 11 months. And then I seen the basement years later, and I could see where it would. So it's so nice to hear. We went to a completely electronic file, cleaned out the basement, all of these things. There's been some really amazing accomplishments.
Absolutely.
Mr. Belser.
Yeah, I just want to take this time to thank our departments. I send you guys hundreds of pictures of stuff that we do around the city, the improvements to the quality of life issues, the blight. This last couple of weeks, we abated 31 illegal encampments in the downtown and south side Oroville area. And I just want to know, it's not always just the work of code enforcement. Our City Works guys are amazing, Josh Jameson and Shane Hutchins and Wade Atterbury with Public Works. At a drop of a dime, when I ask him, hey, I need a front loader and a couple 5-yard trucks because somebody illegally dumped in an alley or whatever, his crew and his staff are there. Something as simple as, and I emailed you guys about this, the shoes being up on utility lines. And it's an ugly image for any city, especially our city. And to reach out to Public Works, to City Works, to the police department, to the MLEs, my team, and say, hey, go find these areas where this is occurring, and let's get those shoes down off of the lines. And, you know, just the teamwork that's out there outside of City Hall, and then the people inside that I work with, amazing people. Liz Einstrom, a lot of the decisions that I have to make, I love to bounce ideas off of her. She's a very knowledgeable person. Going to talk to Amy in housing or Dawn in community development, I always have an avenue to go to. And when I first came here, it wasn't that way. And I've only been here, I'm coming on a year now in January. But the group of people that we have and the amount of people that work for the city that care about the city is pretty amazing. It's just not something I've seen in the last 11 years that I've been a part of the city. So it's a good feeling, and I really think great things are happening. And I would like to add, I went to Small Business Saturday downtown, and if you guys have never attended that, you should go to that because every store has free cookies and brownies and hot chocolate and coffee. Within an hour, I had a tummy ache, me and my son both, but you know, it was really nice to be able to get downtown, see the people, you know, shopping in our businesses, spending their dollars here. And there's a lot of unique people, the business owners. They all have a backstory that's pretty amazing if you take time to talk to them. But it was a really good time. Thank you.
So is that, did they have a sign up for free, or is that if you can outrun the security guard? You know, I'd like to say something. I'd like to say congratulations to the election winners. We had some amazing people that were elected. Sean Weber elected to council, Tracy Johnstone elected to council. They'll do an amazing job. And congratulations to Mayor-elect Pittman. He's got a lot of experience, and we are excited to see how the city moves forward. So I've had a lot of fun here, but I got to get back to work. So with that, we have to reconvene the closed session, and you are excused. Thank you.